Alright, so this should be my first video, I think, that's being posted on the channel in, well, a couple of days. Again, I decided to take some time off with this, little Easter holiday that we've, of course, been, having. But I thought it was time to come out of my shell, I guess, or out of, hibernating. Is that the right word? I don't know. And kind of do another AFL tips and predictions video for you guys right now. Again, this is round 7 that we are going to be talking about. And I think everyone's tips have been pretty munted as far as I'm concerned, because there have been some upsets in this most recent round that have pretty much surprised, everyone and their dad. So it's going to be really interesting to hear how you guys have gone with your tips so far in the comments, and also if you agree with this week's tips, because I think everyone is a little bit indecisive right now on what they are actually going to be doing, with their tips and predictions so far. Again, right now, we are starting off, though, with Melbourne versus Richmond, and this is one of the first and foremost, biggest upsets. I think there would be people in the AFL who were arguing from what we have seen so far. The Gold Coast Suns look like they've got one of the best, lists in the whole game, and amongst a bunch of other things, people were already, I think, calling them a top 4 favourite potentially. I think I'm definitely one of them, and I still think they probably are. I don't think one loss should define what's been happening to them this whole entire season, because it's been really good. But, of course, they choked a massive game against Richmond, who a lot of people, the majority of some of the so-called experts out there legitimately tipped Richmond to not win a game this year. And the crazy fact is that not only have Richmond won a game, but they've won 2 of the first 6 and already look like they have a better roster than West Coast and North Melbourne, who have been rebuilding for 800 years. Again, that might have been a little bit mean to West Coast. I think they've only had a top 10 picks 3 years in a row, but North have had top 10 picks since before I could freaking remember at this point. And Richmond, they are doing some almighty things that no one really expected. Their young core of players like Seth Campbell, those guys who weren't drafted with the top, 28 picks that we've already been talking about for so long. Like the guys, as I just said, like Seth Campbell and Steely Green, Morris Rioli Jr. last night, James Trezise, Hugo Ralph Smith, etc., etc. All of these younger guys who are really starting to come on now look absolutely insane. Again, Melbourne versus Richmond is a really, really tough one, and that is the game we are talking about right now. And that's just based off the fact that Melbourne are coming off a win, but the reality is right now is that I think technically, right, Richmond should win this game. I think Melbourne, they have so many injuries right now that if Richmond are going to continue to be this young core that it looks like we think they're going to be, and Melbourne are kind of entering what Richmond were last year of this transition period of having players who want to be traded and whatnot, I think Richmond should take care of Melbourne here. I think it could be one of the best, Anzac Eve games that we have pretty much ever seen. And the reality is that this is going to be a massive spectacle, because not only is it an honor for both these teams to be playing in this game, but the fact is they're both in a similar spot on the ladder right now, where this is, if Richmond win this game, it just completely has a different look on their whole entire season. Who would have known they would be 3-4? Nearly having a 50-50 record is absolutely crazy. Again, I'm going to tip the Tigers here, but I think Melbourne are going to have more prep time, should be more refreshed, but they've got a lot of injuries right now, and the Tigers actually look pretty solid, in a lot of the games they've played this year. Again, Collingwood versus Essendon. This is arguably one of the biggest games of the whole entire year. Again, the Anzac Day game between two teams who are on very different places on the spectrum right now. Collingwood are first, and they're pretty much nearly the best team in the comp. Essendon are actually doing a little bit better than what a lot of people tipped. Again, this has always been a good game. Unfortunately, this has been the game that has been probably critiqued more than any other game, because for some reason, whether you love Collingwood or hate Collingwood, or love Essendon or hate Essendon, this has been usually the game every year that has really, really crappy umpiring, specifically umpiring that is favoured towards Collingwood. And I've never ever said that in a video talking about, I think that's the first time I've ever mentioned in a video a team being favoured. But I mean, I know a bunch of Collingwood fans, and I think every Collingwood fan knows and expects that. For some reason, just in recent years, they've really had the umpiring. I mean, I think it was the 2019 game was arguably the worst umpired game ever seen. That day where Essendon just couldn't get themselves a free, and if you pretty much touched a Pies player, you'd get a free. So it was a weird day, especially. We've had games since then, I think, where the umpiring has been highly questioned. I mean, it's just something that I have to talk about doing this tips and predictions video, because if we're going based off the last couple years, not only are Essendon now worse than Collingwood by quite a fair margin, but there's a chance they're going to have to go against the umpires here just off the track record we've had the last 5 years. And look, I've never ever said umpires have had affected a game in any video before, but you just have to talk about it now with the Anzac Day game, because it's becoming such a yearly ritual to just shit on Essendon by the umpires in this game. Again, I think no matter what, if they get umpire help or whatever, it doesn't matter. Collingwood should just easily win this game. So it shouldn't be too much to really talk about. But it is a watching factor that I think everyone is going to have in the back of their mind of like, is this going to be another year where we are going to be really, really criticising what is displayed in this Collingwood versus Essendon game that these two teams cannot control. So it'll be interesting to see. Again, Fremantle versus Adelaide. At Optus against Fremantle, not doing what they'd like to do so far this year. They did just lose to Melbourne, while Adelaide are steamrolling along and looking very good, just beating the GWS Giants. Again, I do think Adelaide might genuinely be the better team than Fremantle here. I don't know if Fremantle are going to be that top 8 team like we all thought they were probably going to be, but I still think they should get the job here. They should get the job done here against Adelaide at their home stadium. But this is a very big test for Fremantle to see where they are. Are they a top 8 team or not? Because if they don't win this game, they're probably not a top 8 team. Again, St Kilda versus Brisbane. St Kilda as well, I think, are defying odds, look way better than what a lot of people kind of thought they were going to be. Brisbane coming off an absolute destroying performance on themselves by Collingwood. I think they just had a way shorter break than what Collingwood did, which is something that Richmond might be going through this week. But end of the day is that Brisbane right now should take care of St Kilda, even though I do know that St Kilda are playing much better footy than what we legitimately all thought they were going to be. I just think that Brisbane should get the job here. Should get the job done here. And that's a very similar thing saying for the next game of Port Adelaide versus North Melbourne. Again, a little quick touch on North Melbourne this year. Like, this is arguably the team that has disappointed the most. Again, I had them in 14th, which I knew back in the back of my mind that they could be a lot better than that. I mean, Damien Barrett was practically saying if they don't try and contend for the 8 this year, it is a little bit of a disappointment. And not only have they not done that, but 14th seems like such a massive reach. Again, right now, they are behind Richmond, and I think just in front of Melbourne. They're finishing at the moment 16th, which is flat out disgusting. They don't even have their first round pick. Not that adding another young player would even really help this team, because they just have all the young players ever. It's just nothing is working right now for North Melbourne. And yeah, I might need to make a separate video on that, because it is crazy. Again, I think Port Adelaide should get the job done here. GWS versus the Bulldogs, a game that has low-key become quite a rivalry that honestly should just be really good. Again, both of these teams are in interesting spots. They both want to make the 8. I think the Giants desperately want to make the 4. It should be a really good contest. Again, just because it's at home, I'm probably going to tip the Giants, but I think the Dogs actually have a decent-ish track record from memory of going up to Greater Western Sydney and actually doing a really good job. So that one's going to be interesting, for me to, of course, keep my attention on and watch. I think it's going to be good to see. Again, Gold Coast versus Sydney at, Gold Coast. It is a game that Gold Coast just have to win after that really bad display against Richmond. Again, I think the criticism on Gold Coast right now is that they have beaten a couple of easy teams, and some people are saying they're not a competitor because they haven't played those good teams. But I think they could change this. If they could go and beat Sydney right now, a team that should be pretty much pushing for that top 8, again, a team that was just in the grand final, that would, I think, change a lot of people's opinions right now on what we are seeing with the Gold Coast Suns. So I think Sydney are a massive chance still, and this could be a really big blockbuster game. But I'm going to be tipping in Gold Coast to get the win here. Again, I know that might be a little bit of a shock, but I am tipping the Gold Coast Suns to get the win. Again, Carlton versus Geelong at the G. Yeah, I mean, Carlton have won their last 2, but they've been against pretty easy opponents, West Coast and North Melbourne, while Geelong are in a very interesting spot, I think is the the best way to describe it. We'll definitely see how it continues to, go this year, but I still think they should probably nearly make the top 4. I think they will get the job done here against Carlton, but it could be a competitive game, especially considering Carlton should be higher on confidence than what they previously were. Again, Hawthorn versus West Coast. Probably not much to talk about here. Hawthorn, they should get the job done. But West Coast, my God, I kind of wish they got the win last week, just because I'm starting to feel bad for their fans and what's going on there. But yeah, Essendon, they just scraped away against the Eagles when it mattered. Hawthorn, though, I mean, this could be an absolute smashing if they do what we think they're probably going to be capable of. So that's definitely a very interesting space we got to watch closely. Again, I'd very much like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on this down below. Do you guys like my tips and predictions for this round, or do you guys not? Again, I'd very much like to know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Subscribe to the channel for latest sports content, AFL content, all of the above. Subscribe to my gaming channel, which will be getting linked in the description down below. Again, subscribe, leave a like, comment, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Goodbye.